nonprofit advocacy group for the St. Johns River.
And our mission is to help protect the river.
Hello, welcome once again to the St. Johns Riverkeeper Show. I'm Jimmy Ort, the Executive Director of St. Johns Riverkeeper, and I'm here with my co-host and your St. Johns Riverkeeper, Neil Armington. Neil, good to see you.
Good to see you. How's everything?
If you're tuning in and if you caught the show for the first time last month, there was two people that were much better looking than Neil and I sitting in these two chairs. Our education director and our community outreach director did the show. So we actually got a month off. We're back, Neil.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about the St. Johns River and some of the issues impacting its health, and maybe even some events that are coming up that you can attend. Neil, as always on the show, I like to start off by giving folks out there that may not know who we are and what we do a little bit of information about St. Johns Riverkeeper. So could you start off with that?
Well, we're a citizens group, a nonprofit based here in Jacksonville. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary, our birthday, and we're a citizens group whose main focus is the protection, restoration, and public involvement related to our greatest natural resource, which is the beautiful, well, not so beautiful these days, but the St. Johns River.
And we'll explain a little bit about
we'll
that
explain
comment
my
soon.
hesitation when I said that.
I do want to add, we're a membership-based group. We are privately funded. We like to think of ourselves as an independent voice for the river and for you, for a lot of you that are unable to attend some of these really exciting meetings that we attend, Neil, where decisions are being made that affect the future of the river. That's where we step in. We serve as the voice for the river and for you, the public. And we hope you'll get involved. You can go throughout the show. We'll have our website up on the screen and phone number. Please contact us. Please go to the website, learn more about what we do, and also hopefully get involved. We'd love to have you as a member and love to have you get involved as a volunteer if you're able to. So we can't do this, Neil, without the public.
Right.
That's the bottom line. We have a limited staff.
Right.
We do what we can, but what makes this organization work is the public, the support that we get from folks out there. So hopefully we can get you involved. Right.
And people, as you know, we're going to talk about what's going on with the river, but we have been documenting, sadly, but terrible algae blooms and fish kills, and want to give a shout out to the people that make up our river patrol, which are citizens who help us keep an eye on the river, and just the countless citizens who have been helping us monitor what's going on in the river.
Well, I think that's a perfect example, Neil, of how people can get involved, not just by giving an annual contribution to Riverkeeper, but we do have a river patrol. It's a group of volunteers that have boats and some who don't.
Right. You don't have to have a boat.
Keep an eye on the river.
Right.
And it's a huge river, as we all know. It's 300 miles long and 8,800 square miles of watershed. So we really rely on folks to be out there, to be our eyes on the water. Right. And these folks let us know whenever they see a problem. And in this case, right now, unfortunately, we're getting a lot of calls and a lot of emails and photographs of some of the problems that are affecting the river. You want to talk a little bit about that, Neil?
Well, Jimmy, we've talked about on this show, we have a problem in the river, and the problem is really not the river's fault, it's us. We're putting more nitrogen and phosphorus in the St. Johns than it can, scientific word, assimilate, treat, dilute, and we're in one of those situations where once again, sadly, we're seeing algae blooms, which is kind of a visual way of the river, in effect, telling us, look, I've got issues and we got to do better. You'll see we have some photos, Jimmy, just what I describe as almost otherworldly algae blooms. We first saw them in April when we were on our boat trip, the 2-day boat trip we've talked about, in Lake George. And then it's continued on, and as we sit here today, I was in the river yesterday, and just terrible blooms. Here's some photos. I think that's in Orangedale, which is south of town. This is one of our River Patrol members. And as you can see, it literally, it's hard to imagine that is the St. Johns River. These blooms, when they die off, what you're seeing in these, they almost look like somebody poured paint in the river. And you know, the bad news, Jimmy, is these are toxic. This is a photo from last year. That's Christopher Creek, which is a small tributary. That's the Bowles School dock. That's an aerial photograph Dr. Pinto from JU took.
Green Cove Springs.
This is, I think, Green Cove Springs. This is more what people kind of associate with the green monster. I think this is Walaka.
Rice Creek, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, there's been a terrible bloom there. And then this is a little community called Satsuma, which is on the east side of the river. That's close to the Shands Bridge. And literally, Jimmy, we were out in the river yesterday and we saw algae, not those kind of algae blooms, but we saw signs of algae from Jacksonville. We were 30 miles south at 6 Mile Creek, and there was algae blooms the whole way. And the further south we went, frankly, south of the Shands Bridge, it was just disheartening to see the shape the river's in.
Well, we've been getting calls of algae blooms and fish kills, which we'll talk about in a minute too, from all the way from just south of Jacksonville all the way to Lake George.
Right.
I know we had a board member recently that told us he took a trip all the way down to Lake George and to Silver Glen Springs, and said Lake George was just an absolute mess.
Right, he described it to me as a cesspool, which is a sad commentary. And the thing I think people need to keep in mind, Jimmy, is they hear us talking about this and watching is the Duval County Public Health Department and the St. Johns County and Putnam County, and I believe I've heard now Clay County, there's a health advisory warning people not to contact those blooms that you saw. Not that people really would want to. And that those blooms are producing, you know, some are producing algal toxins, but in effect, the river is closed to recreational activities.
Well, one of the things I want to clarify too, Neil, is that this advisory, what they've done is because they're seeing such a proliferation of algae blooms, and they do change with the weather conditions, where they're located and how extensive they are. They've, like you said, in effect said, anywhere you see an algae bloom or a fish kill, avoid contact with the water. And so that really, in some cases, when they're extensive like we've seen lately, it does limit where you can go out and water ski, wakeboard, or do things where you're going to actually have contact with the water. So we just caution everyone to be careful. Just keep an eye out. And then again, too, one thing we want you to do out there is if you see an algae bloom, or if you see a fish kill, which like I mentioned, we'll talk about in a minute, please contact us because we want to be able to document this also, and we can point you to the appropriate agencies to report these incidents as well. But it's really important that the agencies know how frequently this is happening. They're not out on the water every day. They have limited staff. We're not out on the water every day. We have limited staff and can only do so much to monitor these. We need you to help us to make sure that we know what is happening out on the river. And as Neil mentioned, this trip that they just took in a 30-mile stretch of the river, it was really disheartening to see what's happening.
Yes, and you know, Jimmy, the thing, we're coming up on a holiday weekend, the 4th of July, and you know, we're going to talk about the fish kill, and I think we look at those fish and it's tragic. But you know, there are business people who depend on a clean and healthy St. Johns River. And when the river's in the state that it's in, it has an economic impact to this community. We've always said, you know, this river is our greatest natural resource, and so goes its health, so go we as a community. And it's hard to feel good about the community right now because the river is in bad shape, really. I can't mince words, I can't make it sound better than it is. It's, and why don't we got a video here. We mentioned fish kills. Why don't we get into that, Jimmy, and let people kind of see, and I'll give some specifics about what that, because I've heard people say they've lived on the river here